Hello, and welcome to another episode of Movies That Make Us. I'm Jake.
I'm Tracy.
And I'm Val.
And Valerie is broadcasting from
Chicago.
Chicago.
I feel like I'm here so much I should get like a permanent place of residence.
Yeah.
But
I
would have to pay for that. And I don't have to pay for this. So
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
I do want to preemptively apologize for all of the yawning I'm gonna do. The show is nothing. It's not that I think that our show is boring, but I'm going to show you what my phone just reminded me of. It's almost time to go to bed. So that's just to let you know at 8:30 at night, my phone reminds me, because I'm an old lady, that it's almost time to go to bed.
I need my phone to remind me.
Yeah, my phone doesn't remind me. I've got
that as well, and like I need to then listen to it because I find myself not going to bed. Like I find myself exhausted at the end of the night, and then it's like I'm going to lay down and go to bed, and then I find rabbit holes to go down on the internet or some stupid thing to watch on. Like you know when you find that show that's just so dumb that you're like, why would I be interested in this? And then you're sucked in within like 10 minutes. And like it becomes your ride or die for that night until.
But are you in bed while you're watching it?
Yeah, usually.
Well, my phone didn't tell me to go to sleep.
Okay,
it said it's time to go to bed.
That is a good.
So if I get the comment like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to bed so early," I'm like, "Well, my phone told me to." But once I'm in bed and relaxed, it means I don't have to do anything else. So if I decide to look at my phone for another 2 hours or to find a show. As long as I'm in bed, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
So
them's the rules.
You're listening to your phone. So I guess I could get away with that.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, you have way more responsibilities than I do, so I don't know. But
I don't know that we've ever sat down and like compared the responsibilities, but I think we all have quite a few.
I mean, my kid's 22 and doing her own thing. So if I had a young child at my house,
you have young dogs.
Yeah, but they get in bed with me, and and this is another thing. They'll get in bed and they will literally line my legs with dog. I can't move, so I guess I'm gonna have to stay here. Nothing I can do. Nothing I can do.
And I just want to throw this out there. It's going to be controversial, and people are going to think that I'm an awful person.
Don't sleep with your dogs in your bed?
No. Sleep with whoever you want in your bed. I'm not going to judge you. I said what I said. But I love animals. I think dogs are amazing. Cats are tolerable. But Tracy, you said she has young dogs. When I said I had kids, I just want to point out, I just am not on board with dog parenting being the same as kid parenting. I'm glad you love your dogs. People, and this is not directed at you, Val, because I've never gotten this vibe from you, but I get that you like your dogs, people, but like they're dogs, and they're wonderful, and they're great companions. They're way better than kids in a lot of ways, because dogs don't reach a point where they talk back to you all the time. Your kids will reach.
But I get that side eye that I know.
Yeah.
What they're saying.
Yeah, but you give them a treat.
And if they get really mad at you, they can crap on things, and you're angry about it, but you don't
totally
think
do that too.
True. No, I'm one of those. I've had a situation in my life where my dog Samson a couple of years ago, who I love and miss so much,
right?
In order to save his life, it was an almost $10,000 surgery.
Yeah.
And they couldn't guarantee me what his life would be after the surgery. Like, what is his quality of life going to be? As a parent with my child, it wouldn't matter. Let's do it. We'll figure it out. Like, but with a dog, one, yes, that is a lot of money. I know there are a lot of people out there that have paid that and more. That's
Sure.
great for you. But if it would break my heart if I paid that money for surgery and then afterwards, like he couldn't do anything
Mhm.
as a dog. Like dogs want to
Yeah.
run around and they want to play and they want to do all this stuff. There's just not the same technology. And if he was just a sad lump, it just wasn't, one, I couldn't financially afford that.
Right.
And two, just not knowing how he would be after, I just didn't feel
Yeah.
good about it. And so it was very hard for me to say
Absolutely.
goodbye, and I missed him. But there are some people that no problem, they would pay that for their dog. I think Babe might be one of those people.
Okay. That's good to know. I will keep this thought to myself next time I see Babe, and I
Yeah.
will not.
No,
Yeah.
no, he's not going to get mad at you because you don't believe the same as him. But
Well, that's good.
I mean, I get it with you. Like my dogs are not my kid, but if you don't have kids, I get
I
why
get
that's
it.
so important. I have a couple of friends that they don't have kids and their dogs are their life and they do so many things for their dogs. One of them, they actually have a dog with wheels because the
Yeah.
back leg, like I
Mhm.
don't,
And
I'm with
I-
you, whatever you want to do,
Yeah, and I
but
get
it's
that.
not the same.
Yeah, I get that too. Like if you don't have kids because of whatever reason, and it doesn't matter. Again, there are
Yeah.
a number of reasons why that's the case. And your pets are the most important things in your life because you don't
Yeah.
have kids. Totally understand that. But raising your dog is not the same as raising my child. And it's just different. And it just
You
is.
will get arrested if you put your kids in a crate because they
That's
crapped
good
on the
point.
floor or because you need to go
Yeah.
out. Don't
Yeah.
do that, people. Don't do
Yeah.
that to your kids.
Yeah,
No.
bad idea.
But again, love dogs. And I'm glad that
Or you
people
know.
Yeah. So fun fact about Chicago, Val, while you're there.
Oh, okay.
I was watching something the other day where people were talking about, like, someone had mocked up a bunch of uniforms for the different NBA teams, and one of them was Chicago, and they had like waves and boats on it, and they're like, I don't get that. Chicago's not near any water. I'm like,
Yeah, it is. It's near a lot of water.
the other person that was on the channel was like, I think there's like a famous river that runs through Chicago or something. I'm like, guys, like I don't expect people that are redesigning NBA uniforms for fun on YouTube to like do extensive research on the places that they're talking about. But like you ought to know that Chicago is on the shores of Lake Michigan, which is a huge body of water. Like you should know that.
Huge.
Like
Let's do a uniform for the Utah Hurricanes. That'll be great.
yeah. Well, they have
Those
Colorado
memes have been
Swamplands.
the memes have been hilarious
with
for
Which one?
our NHL team. Yay, Utah's
Yeah.
getting an
Oh.
NHL team. I'm so excited.
My favorite was John Smith, our friend John Smith, dropping the cool jazz.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
I like that. It'll never happen, but I like where he's going with that. Like
Yeah.
I don't know why we feel like we have to tie it to Utah somehow. I don't think we do because
I
the
like
Jazz
the-
are
I like
great.
the
but
Yetis idea.
which one?
The Yetis. I'm like,
Yeah, that's one
yeah.
that's been gaining a lot of steam. My only problem with the Yetis is I don't know if that's the I always thought the plural of Yeti was just Yeti,
Yeah.
Hmm.
but
Well,
I want to
knowing
know
Utah,
why
the
we
Pixie
don't
season,
ever have teams named after utensils because utensils can be super powerful.
Sure.
Like a spork. Nobody wants to lose to a spork. Nobody, right? Also a whisk. If you can whisk hard, man, that's a lot of muscle, and whisks can really mess things up. So I don't know
It
why
sounds
we
like
don't
personal
have.
experience. Dude, I got to tell you, a whisk will mess you up.
Have you ever tried to whisk something for 5 minutes? I can't get past 1.5 before I have to switch
Absolutely, but
hands. Like
it's
if you have to get something into like where it's thick enough, you have to whisk that, and that takes muscle.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried beating anyone with a whisk? I haven't, but I can imagine not fun.
I don't know where to go from here. I feel like you could.
I haven't even taken my muscle relaxers
I
yet.
know
And
that's
this
what's
is how
amazing
our
about
show is
all of
going.
this. I
Not
feel
that
like
you guys, I don't just take muscle relaxers. I'm recovering
You're
from a
recovering
surgery.
from surgery.
We won't get
Yes.
into that. But I don't want people to randomly think that I'm like
Just doping.
take muscle relaxers if I don't need them.
yeah.
No, I'm just wondering why it always has to be like an animal or like
I agree. Kitchen utensils are
national
mostly
disaster.
underrepresented in
favorite thing
sports
is-
iconography.
My favorite thing is Ryan Smith, the owner, has said that he's going to open it up to voting.
Yeah.
I looked aside and I'm like, that's how we got Bodie McBoatface.
I
And-
love Bodie
Right? I'm like,
McBoatface,
if this works out, we could.
but they ended up changing that later.
I know.
And I think what he's doing now, there's still going to be a public aspect. He's going to have a bracket with 8 team names to choose from.
But I was like, when you open it up to the internet,
And I'm pretty sure Hockey McHockey Team is not going to be one of the choices. But now I want it to be one of the choices.
Couldn't we get hysterical?
We could get hysterical.
Historical, and we could be kind of like make people angry, be a little controversial, and we could be Utah atom bombs. I'm just saying, like that kind of
ooh, Southern Utah, yeah.
Yeah.
like just this big mushroom cloud
There you go.
and a thumb.
There are the Las Vegas Isotopes. So,
There are the Las Vegas Isotopes. Yeah.
See, we
I
could
do
be the
love
atom bombs.
Part of your logo there, the thumb.
Fallout.
Yeah.
Which I'm enjoying. I'm on episode 7 of Fallout. I think
It was so good. We got in bed thinking I was gonna go to sleep and we'll watch one episode.
Ah.
Yeah.
Nah, we just watched all of them.
I haven't checked out Fallout yet. I made it through 1 1/4 of the Rebel Moon movies, and I'm not sure I'm going to finish the second one.
I did the first one. I
Don't
haven't started
waste
the
your
second,
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry if anybody has watched the second
not
Rebel Moon.
I
think everybody
liked
should
the
check
second
out the
one.
first one and just see if it's your jam.
Yeah.
Because I do know people that have liked it.
There
I don't know who you are. Well, I do know who some people are, but
there is a large, I don't know how big it actually is, but there's a large Zack Snyder fan base out there that
it's
are
huge.
devout.
I don't know it's that big. I think it's just that vocal.
They're
Whatever the
probably
case is,
vocal.
they're loving this.
They're getting money, so they've got to be influential because, oh my gosh, Netflix is now giving him all this money, and he doesn't even know where the story's going.
Right.
He doesn't know how many more movies he's going to make. He's like, I could do 4 or 8. It just kind of depends on
And I could make
what
R-rated
happens while we're
version, and then I
making
could
it.
I could make this one into 2 parts. And that one could be a 3-parter.
It's a mess. It's just a mess. And Val, you pointed out that there's every like sci-fi franchise that you know is in this movie somewhere.
Fantasy, sci-fi,
Mhm.
and it's not that we don't love all those movies.
Right.
No.
But he's just like throwing them in like without anything. It is the worst stew of things that I love that I have ever witnessed.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a place in film for a good flashback scene for exposition. Like that's fine. But it's like seasoning. You don't want to overpower the flavor of your movie with flashback scenes. And that's what he does. Everybody's got a story, a backstory, and they've all got a flashback scene or 7, and it's just too much.
Yep.
Then make that the movie. Make their backstory the first movie and lead up to this one.
So I have a good version of what that is. So there's a movie coming out this weekend that Tracy's going to cover on Good Things Utah called Challengers. Challengers is a movie that has a lot of flashback incidences that help you move forward to the story, the timeline that's happening currently. And in the beginning, when it kept going, I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going to be that movie where we're hopping through these timelines? But it actually helps how you feel about these characters instead of just putting it in this linear storytelling. So to me, it actually ended up working. But yeah, like you said, oh my gosh, Rebel Moon, it's so dysfunctional. And it sucks because it's beautiful.
Oh,
If
it
you
is.
were to shut off the sound and just say, I just want to watch a scene from this movie and a scene from this movie, because it could be anything. Even when you have the dialogue on, you don't know why or what or how or when. It's just blah, blah, blah.
Well, and I feel like
But
the
it's
concept,
beautiful.
it could work. It's like not a bad idea for a movie. It's just,
It's too many ideas
yeah.
for one thing happening.
I mean, they even had a hippogriff from Harry Potter that shows up. What the heck? Like, it's not even like they're trying to have it be a different creature. It is like Buckbeak from Harry
Yeah.
Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I'm like,
Well, that's why when I talked about the original one, I don't remember if I talked about it on the show or not, but it's basically just him giving the finger to all of these filmmakers and creators and saying, look, I can do it too, for no reason whatsoever.
You know what doesn't do that though?
that's the segue we're going with.
It does do that, but in the best way possible.
Like, yeah, in an intentional way. Civil
Reasons.
War.
Yeah, it
Civil
has
War.
reasons. And no, we're not talking about Civil War from Marvel. We
Yeah.
are talking about a new movie, Civil War, that has nothing to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if you think going in that it does,
You're going to have
you
a bet.
might be disappointed for about 10 minutes. Then hopefully the light will turn on and you'll understand what a groundbreaking movie this is.
And it's not the Ken Burns Civil War.
No, which is fantastic.
Right.
I love that
Yes.
documentary series. Ken Burns, I will take any history series from Ken Burns, and they're amazing. But we're not talking about that either.
We got Alex Garland tonight.
Alex Garland,
I think, is one of the most interesting filmmakers out there. I feel like his only misstep was Men. I did not like Men, mostly because it was so obtuse. I just couldn't understand what he was trying to say with it, but it was different. It was weird, which was cool. But everything else he's done, like Ex Machina, I think is one of the best sci-fi movies in the last 25 years. I love Devs that was on Hulu with Nick Offerman. It's really slow, but man, is the payoff good. He wrote the Sunshine, which Danny Boyle directed. He wrote 28 Days Later. He wrote and directed Annihilation with Natalie Portman, which is a fantastic sci-fi movie. And now he's here with a cautionary tale of where we could be going as a country. And not just us. I think this was an interesting point he made, is he's like, this is as much of a warning for England and for Western democracy as it is for America.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it's important to point out, too, that this is a cautionary tale, like you said, Tracy. But if you're going into it thinking that he is heavy-handedly pushing one agenda over the other, I don't feel like it's not like you can go in and say, well, this is, the red states versus the blue states.
Right.
Now, are there flavors of that in this? There are. And I think there are some definite key moments in it. But this isn't like he didn't cut and paste, like, here are the red states, here are the blue states that are fighting the Civil War. It's, which I thought was a smart move on his part, because the point wasn't a political statement. The point was, this is where our constant division this is where we could go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I definitely think he is a great counterpart to A24, because A24 makes takes big chances. They don't always pay off for me, just like Tracy. Not all of his movies have fit what I have wanted to see, but every movie that he has done, as well as almost every movie that A24 has done, has been pushing boundaries or trying something new. We don't always understand it, but they're taking chances.
It's got a point of view.
Yeah, there is a point of view. And for me, this is probably the most gutsy movie I think I've ever seen. I've been trying to think in my mind since we watched the movie, like there have been gutsy movies. There have been movies that have taken chances. There are movies that aren't this kind of genre that, of course, have been really gutsy. And I talk about movies, really taking that chance. And not a lot of them do, because it's scary for an audience. It's scary for a studio, for a film, to be able to allow a filmmaker to make these chances. Sometimes when a studio allows a filmmaker to make a chance or to take a chance, it ends up being Rebel Moon, and it's just a big vomit fest. But this is a well-written, well-made movie, well-cast movie. And I love that it's from the perspective from press, because that also says something else. We've got Kirsten Dunst, who she hasn't been doing a lot of roles lately, but the roles that she has chosen have been great. Power of the Dog was such a different role for her, and so fantastic. And then for her to be a photographer, a war photographer, her character alone, if you were to take everything out of the film and the fact that she has put herself in the state of mind of taking feeling out of watching people die.
Right.
But then she also says in the film, like, I have been taking photos of our world disintegrating morally forever and putting them out there. So this shouldn't be a surprise, but yet here I am again and again and again doing this. And so she has to be numb, right?
Yeah. And she says the great line about, I keep thinking every time I take these pictures, we're going to figure out we don't want this here. And here we are,
Yeah, like I said, here we are again and again. I'm taking the pictures of the same thing.
But it's here.
Yeah, here in America.
It's always somebody else's problem. It's always on the other side of the world. And now it is right here.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that's, I think, initially so jarring, because I think as you're watching it, you're like, this is such a foreign concept, or foreign as in strange concept. I can't even fathom this. But then you stop and think, this is what people in certain parts of the world right now are experiencing every day.
And we take it for granted because we think that we're untouchable.
Well, I think it's interesting too. They made the very interesting distinction, in my opinion, that you have, especially because I've seen it twice now, and I really noticed this the second time, is that Kirsten Dunst's character is shooting digital. And the young girl that they pick up that comes with them on this journey is shooting analog. She's shooting actual film. And so every time you see Kirsten Dunst's photos, it is the real, it's in color, it's in digital, it's crisp. And then hers has that more journalistic. When we think of like war images, we often think of the black and white photos, right? We think of the
or that sepia.
You get that kind of. So, and then we'll get to it in a minute. I want to definitely hit on that, but that final image pulls that whole movie together. And the cool thing, the thing that I loved about this too, especially as we're moving into the end scene where the assault is happening on Washington, D.C., Alex Garland hired former Navy SEALs and former special ops guys to stage those scenes. And he was like, if you were going to attack this, how would you do it? And when it came to the shooting, he put those guys, he cast those guys as soldiers and said, you do what you're going to do, and my camera team will just follow you. And so he said, he told the actors of Kirsten Dunst and the other journalists, you guys have been around enough throughout the filming of this. You know how journalists would act. You guys act as if you're the journalist filming this, and my camera crews will film you guys filming this. And that's how we're going to do these scenes.
It's all very meta.
Are we going to do spoilers for this?
What's that?
We should say now. Are we going to do spoilers on this one?
It's been a couple of weeks.
I think we've waited a couple of weeks.
So if you haven't seen the movie, click it off now. Come back after you've seen the movie. Okay?
Well, unless you're unless you're hesitant to see the movie because you're worried about what's in it,
Sorry,
then stick around and we can let you know. But
yeah, but if you don't want the spoilers,
Yeah.
yeah,
Then
I
now
think
it's
Jessie's character, she's the younger photographer, and Jessie was important to me in so many ways because, especially when you have the two different film types, right? So the younger version of who is going to end up being Kirsten Dunst's character is
Right.
Jessie. And she starts it with on regular film, which is probably how, and I don't want to keep saying Kirsten Dunst's character Lee, her
Lee.
name's Lee, how she started, right?
Right.
But it also shows us a pattern that we're going backwards. We've had a civil war here. We're going full circle. We're going backwards. Why are we doing this again? We have learned this once, but we're not learning anything, right? We're repeating. History is repeating itself. And then when you have the baton at the end, when it basically gets passed to Jessie, when Lee dies right there, it means that Jessie will probably die in the same way.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to end. This is not, and we have countries in the world right now, and I'm not going to say sides or anything, that have been having these wars forever. Decades.
Millennia.
They've been fighting. We don't want to be that in America.
Yeah, there's a scene in that, Valerie, and she says something to the effect of, oh shoot, we'll come back to it because I've got my brain's lost.
You got ghosted by a thought.
I did, but we'll come back to that. But anyway, but I love the idea too that you were talking about how her character is so numb, and I really noticed this during the second one, and I think you kind of have to be. And she says that when she's talking to Jessie the first time when they're in the van after the gas station incident.
Yeah, that was rough.
And I love the fact this was what was great to me is A, this movie is not nearly as political as you think that it is. And B, a lot of the stuff is inferred in this movie, which makes it even more horrifying because we leave the gas station and Jessie or Lee gets Jessie out of trouble in a way because she's like, the guy's kind of acting a little weird. And she's like, let me take your picture. She's like giving into his ego. Like, you're the big bad guy with the gun. Let me put you in front of these guys that you're torturing and let's take your picture and make you feel good about yourself. But then when they get back in the car and they say the line about when they were going to kill those guys anyway.
Yeah.
So those guys got killed. The girl Lee is having this,
Jessie,
thank you, is having this breakdown. And she says, you have to shut all of that off. Lee tells her, she's like, this is the job. And if you can't do the job, get out. And you are here to film. And when I was in film school and we did documentary courses, that was one of the things they told us is if you're going to go into this, you shoot no matter what.
Yeah.
You keep shooting and it doesn't matter what's happening. You don't interfere. You shoot it and you capture it. And that's what you do. And that's what this character is doing until the end. And I think it's so interesting because after the older guy, sorry, I should look up the cast name here.
Sammy.
Yes, Sammy.
Sammy
is Stephen McKinley, who I love.
He's so good. And she loses it. Like she can't function. That whole battle for Washington, they're having to pull her out of the way. They're having to get her moving because she's just shut down. Whereas the young girl is now, she's no longer hesitant. She is right in the middle of this thing. She's putting herself in danger. And then you have the guy who is so excited that this is finally happening. Like this is the greatest day of his life because he's in the middle of the final.
He had his breakdown earlier.
Right.
So now he's angry.
Yeah. It was an interesting choice to have it be from the perspective of the press. I think it was a great choice. I think it was a brilliant choice. And it was because it gave us so many points of view of how they're documenting it, like you guys have been talking about, and just kind of seeing the way the press operates in this kind of an environment and in this kind of time, you know, when they first meet Jesse and she's out there just taking pictures. She doesn't have
Yeah.
a vest on, she doesn't have a helmet on. She's just, you know,
Freelance.
yeah, freelance photographer. And, you know, the next time, you know, Lee tells her next time that she sees her, she better be in Kevlar and she better, you know, be wearing a helmet and something to identify her as press. Now, they still might get shot if they're press, depending on what
Yeah.
group they come across, but they're
Right.
less likely to be
Right.
shot if they're press. And
Yeah.
you see them go into these situations like when they're in the kind of showdown between the two sides, kind of in the middle of the movie.
Mhm.
And the one side's kind of pinned down because they've got snipers up on the roof, and
Mhm.
and you know that whole scene is they're going through the building to find the last sniper.
Oh, yeah.
And that was all intense, and like, but they're in that scene. They've got the helmet on, and they've got, you know, not completely decked out like we see the two reporters at the end. But that's an interesting scene when you talk about Jesse at the end, kind of being in the middle of everything and like being at the front. In that scene, she's got the guy kind of pushing her along and guiding her through everything. And it was a way to kind of show in an almost in an impartial way. This is just kind of like it felt very much like they were just documenting what was going on instead of trying to tell a story.
Well, and I think that's important too because of where we are with news right now. Like I was telling people, this is the most political yet unpolitical movie I've ever seen because you're going to watch it and there are people that are going to find whatever they need to find out of it if they're not really just watching it, right? If you're not seeing that this is an impartial thing, this is because most of like press photographers, if you are an on-site photographer and you are a war photographer, you are there, like you said, you have to take yourself out of that situation and you have to document what's going on. Then those photos go from you to wherever you're sending them and somebody else creates the story, right? They're not there to create whatever's going to come out and be said about it. They're capturing this moment, right? And I'm not going to say every photographer doesn't have a side, but most photographers are following anybody in who will let them in.
Right.
And, you know, there was a brawl that's outside of a building that you can't tell. Most of the movie, you can't tell what sides who. There could be seven different sides. And then we kind of get down the, okay, but there are two main sides. But inside of these two main sides, there's also all of these other sides happening.
Yeah.
And so if they meet up with a group that will allow them to follow them, they go in with them. And it seems like it happens so much all the time that people are just used to them being there, following them, and they watch out for them a little bit, but you know, they show so much of the realism of how people are being killed in the different sides that I was like, wow, like I thought it was going to go somewhere else. There is instances that you don't see people die, but there's a lot of instances that you're like, okay, they're going to fade out. They're going to go to the next thing. And they show you.
Yeah.
And that was crazy to me.
Yeah. And so thank you, because that made me think of what I was going to say earlier is they mentioned in the film, you have the Western Front, which is California and Texas, but then they show on the map, there are other sections, and they talk about it a little bit in the movie, that there are these other groups.
Yeah.
And they mention once Washington falls, these other groups are going to eat each other. This is not the end of this battle.
No.
These other groups are now going to start picking at each other. And the thing that I thought was so cool about the way he laid out this movie, and you were talking about how you can't tell who's on what side, because we have the scene at the building that Jake's talking about with the shootout, where they're storming the building, and the guys that the photographers are following are in like Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah.
They're not in uniform. And then later we end up, so you're like, okay, so that must be the one side, and the other guys in the uniforms must be the army. And then you get to the scene where it's all Christmas decorations.
My favorite scene of the whole movie.
By the way, they found all those Christmas decorations and stuff in a field like 100 meters away from where they were going to film, and they were like, let's pull that over here and use it. So he's like, some people, Alex Garland was like, some people have said that's a really surreal thing, and that was really cool. And he was like, that's just was there. We just
It was great that they thought that was such a good idea, because what it does is you relate to, in most places there's some kind of Christmas family thing that you go to, right? And now it's this happy thing that you know of is now in the middle of this basically terrorist situation. But this was my favorite scene of the entire movie, because at this point, if you're not paying attention to what's being put in front of you, if you don't hear it and see it after this scene, like you're not getting it, because when he says, what are you guys doing here? Like, what side? And he's like, no, there's a guy up there that's shooting at us and we don't want to die, so we're shooting back. He had a way better line than that, but that's basically the gist of it. Is the two sides that they don't know who they are. They're just trying to stay alive. And that's no side is a good side. They're all just shooting at each other.
And now we're with the army guys. So now we switched who they're following. And then we come across.
But we don't know if they're army guys. They're just wearing camouflage. Well, they're in fatigues,
but and they do have.
You can get those anywhere. I can go.
I was going to say, Tracy, if you don't think that there's somebody in the middle of nowhere America that's got all those fatigues and could look just like an army guy,
100%.
I mean, 100.
And then we end up, and with, in my opinion, the person who steals this movie is Jesse Plemons. We end up later with him, and he's in army fatigues, but again, we don't know if he's with the army. And he's just like killed a whole bunch of people and pouring lye into the pit. So he's up to no good. And so that's the whole thing with this movie, is you don't know who's on what side or who's got what agenda or who's got what motivation.
That scene is one of the most difficult scenes in anything that I've ever seen. I mean, that scene alone, like if you're squeamish at all, that would be the scene that you need to watch out for in this movie for sure, because it's hard to watch.
And I saw an interview with Kirsten Dunst. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I forgot that him and Kirsten Dunst are married, by the way. Like, they're together.
I've heard he's a lot different in real life than his.
I hope so. But the fact that he did this role, that he's just in that scene, but it is one of the most powerful scenes. But what I got from that is that sometimes humans will put on something that looks like a military uniform because it makes them feel like what they're doing now is okay. Like it's giving them a pass button. Like, I am a part of something that makes it okay for me to kill. And so when in this movie, he just scatters about uniforms of different types, because just because you don't have a military uniform on doesn't mean you're not being, you know what I mean? Like, you're not representing something else. You've got the press corps, right? That's a uniform that says you can do a certain thing. You've got fatigues, all different colors of fatigues. You have people in the army press, but are they really in the army, or just do they have army fatigues on with press? Like, there are so many things that he sprinkles through this film. And when you get to that scene with Jesse and they think that they're trying to figure out now, does anybody in the truck have military uniforms on? No. Which means that he just killed that town.
Yeah.
And there's kids in there. Like, it was hard. And that means this person, who, whether he's in the military or not, thinks that he has some kind of upper hand, that he can make these decisions, means that nobody's a winner here. War is a losing prospect. With people that think if they have power, they can do these things.
I saw the interview with Kirsten Dunst, and she said she's like, the only reason he did it is because she begged him. She's like, you have to do this.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, because he's married to me, he had to. But she was like, and she's like, and that's the thing. Like, I've heard he's like a super nice guy, but man, I first saw him on Breaking Bad, and people nicknamed him Meth Damon because he kind of looks like Matt Damon, and it was the story about meth. But dude, he steals that movie with him when he's standing there and he's like repeating the questions back to him. And they're like, so we're American. He's like, American, huh? Okay. Where are you from? You know, and just that whole scene, the way he says it,
I held my breath.
And then she's like, Missouri. He's like, show me state. Why is it the show me state? Like he's interrogating her without interrogating her. And then he was like, okay, see, that's American. Good. But the line about what kind of American are you?
That hit hard. That hit hard.
And when the guy says Hong Kong.
I mean, I knew he was dead. I knew he was dead at that.
And he was so casual about it when so China. And like, that's
like
a hard
he's
scene
in that scene, but I want to see him get like a best supporting actor nod because that scene is so good.
It's one that sticks with you because there are so many things in that scene alone that are relatable to what's happening all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing about this film that I thought was so powerful is that each killing either scene or photograph that you see is something that I have seen in live footage from other wars.
Yep.
So that scene of his is very much could have been a scene from World War II, could have been a scene from Rwanda, could have been where they had bodies in a truck that they have mass graves, that they're just, Africa, Germany, Austria, any of those places where they're doing mass genocide.
And two, when Lee's in the bathtub at the hotel, and she's thinking about all the other places that she's been, and the scene where they have the guy in the tire and they pour gas over him and light him on fire, like that happens. Yeah. That's a war image that I've seen before.
Yeah.
And it's just,
that's why it was so powerful that they showed those and that people are recognizing them, which means that we are watching these things on the internet and on the news, and we're becoming her. We're desensitized.
Yeah. It takes so much to shock us now.
Yeah.
What are you laughing at, Jake? What's going on?
We are talking about a very serious thing, and so I apologize if it seems like I'm coming across.
No, I know you're talking to one of your kids.
Yeah, my kids just got home. They've been at a sports banquet all night, and their school this year did Letterman jackets for those that participated in sports, and so they got their Letterman jackets, and they were pretty proud, and we're showing them off. So
that's awesome. Congrats, kids.
And as a dad, I was very proud. I never got a Letterman's jacket when I was in high school. That's because I didn't participate in any of the sports, obviously. But I always thought it would be cool. And so I'm very proud of them.
Jake,
very cool.
I don't want to put you on the spot here, but you don't get Letterman's jackets just for sports. I lettered in AV and debate because I'm a nerd. And I got my Letterman's jacket for both of those.
There are a number of activities that you can, and that is a very fair point.
I just want you to point out that you didn't participate in any extracurricular activities.
That's a fair point.
I'm just kidding. And
I have no idea. In my kids' defense, they played sports, but they also just returned on Sunday from going to nationals for academic bowl for all the deaf schools in the country.
That is cool too.
For them.
Yeah, so they do other things too besides just sports, and they got recognized for that as well. But
these are all things in America that other countries do not every country gets to participate in. Yet in this movie, done. None of that exists.
Well,
yeah.
So one of my other favorite scenes, and I noticed it the first time I was watching it, but the second time is the very first event. It's where they see Jesse, and once the bomb goes off, and Lee recognizes when the woman goes running into the middle with the flag.
Oh yeah.
And then she goes, okay, this is it, and pulls Lee out of the way, and then the explosion happens from the suicide bombing. And normally in a movie like this, you would have a ringing noise and you'd have everything muted. And instead, Garland completely cuts the sound. And it's at least 30 seconds. And that is so rare in movies. Like, you'll have ambient noise, but it is bone silent.
And you
next sound click is the shutter of the camera.
And the sound in this, both in that scene, and throughout the movie, but also the music choices that they make here. So much. This is not a soundtrack that I'm going to put on and relax to, like try to study or something. Like,
no,
because they made intentional choices that the music throughout makes you uncomfortable and anxious. Like, I came out of this. If you're going to a movie because you want a nice, relaxing afternoon, this is not the movie for you, because it will make you feel anxious. It will make you feel uncomfortable. And the music plays a big role in that. The sound choices that they make plays a big role in that. It is a constant. You're just uncomfortable, and all of your senses are uncomfortable. Fortunately, I was next to good feeling people. Thank you very much. But other than that, all of your other senses uncomfortable.
Well, and the great thing is there are a couple of scenes where they get you to lower your guard, and then, bam, that's when they hit you.
Yeah. I did post that I thought this was the best movie of the year so far, and that I think everybody probably above the age of 13 should experience this film. And I did have a couple people comment on my post that they thought this movie was boring. I get that everybody gets to have their own opinion, and that art is subjective, and this is art. However, and don't hate me, friends, that put that. Were you seeing the film? You can go and watch a movie.
Right.
And you cannot see what's happening. You can talk back and forth to somebody, but not really hear what they're saying. But I think those comments about it being boring makes this movie even more powerful, because are they so desensitized to seeing this kind of stuff that this was just another day at the park for them? And me, I'm not used to seeing it, and I don't ever want to get used to seeing it. So that a human life being taken, or seeing human lives that have been taken is nothing to me. Like, I almost joined the military to record war. Like, they came to military, let's see, it was the Marines and the Army tried to get me, because I was honoring an AV, to join them so that I could be a military journalist.
Wow.
And I wanted to. Like, I wanted to be a part of National Geographic when I was younger. Like, there was two things that kept me from joining the Army to do that. One was my mom. She would have killed me. Two was boot camp. I'm super lazy. I don't need people yelling at me in the morning while I'm running. I don't like any of those things. Other than that, I wanted to do that job so hard. But if I would have ever done that job, because I want to be a documentarian, like, I just want it. I hope that, yes, I would do what I needed to do to get the job done, but I hope that it would still hurt me that I was doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the thing that I thought was cool too is we were talking about how there's the different levels of the civilians versus the Army, and we can't tell who's who. You can't really tell, and this is so true now too. You can't really tell who the press is. Just because they're wearing a press shirt doesn't mean they're technically press. Lee wasn't really press.
Jesse.
Sorry. Jesse wasn't really press until they take her on. And then you have the embedded people who are officially with the Western Front, who are embedded with them. Then you have the freelancers that these guys are, which I think makes it interesting. But real quick, before we run out of time, can we say too, the cinematography in this?
Oh yeah.
There are scenes that are so beautiful. The driving through the fire.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow. That was beautiful. And I was so glad I saw it on IMAX.
Yeah.
But there's several scenes like that. That's like, but even in the horror, it's so beautifully lit and framed. The football stadium that they stay in with the UN camp or whatever, you know, with all the graffiti on all the stadium walls and stuff. I mean, it was just, the cinematography was just so good in this.
There wasn't really an aspect of the movie that I felt wasn't high quality or wasn't really well done. And it was, like I said, very intentional in the choices that they made and in the things that they did. Um, the one criticism that I've seen that I would kind of agree with, but not fully, is that the characters aren't really fleshed out that much. We don't get a lot of character development. And I think that's fair, but I don't think that that was the point of the film.
Yeah.
This isn't a
Right.
character-driven movie, and
Right.
so I'm willing to give it a pass because we get enough from the characters for me to be tied to them through the movie.
Yeah.
I don't need a huge character arc or a huge development of these characters, but I need just enough, and I think they give us just enough.
Yeah. The characters are not the main character of the film. But I get enough of these characters that I care about them, that I believe them and who they are and what they're doing, and the fact that they're going to change because of the environment that they're in. But it's also this hodgepodge full of people that when you watch something like, oh my gosh, what's the Pedro Pascal movie or show that's based on a video game?
Oh, Last of Us.
Last of Us. You meet a whole bunch of hodgepodge people in that time that you don't know their background, but that's how something like the Civil War happens, right?
Right.
Is that people get mixed off from their loved ones, from where they're from, and they all congregate together and they figure it out. So that's why, like, it works so much for me. And then when you get down to that end scene, man, you know, I always loved freaking Nick Offerman, and and when I saw that he was the president at the beginning, I leaned over to Tracy. I'm like, could this just be our reality? And then I was like, oh no.
I mean, Nick Offerman himself, yes, but not his character. And he does really, really well in this as well. He's in it for, I mean, less than
briefly.
I mean, he's in it. Even though kind of his character is the main focus of what they're trying to do, because they're trying to get to Washington to get that interview before he gets taken down. But we don't see him very much. We see a speech from him that is, you know, his speech is saying they are on the verge of victory. And then as we go through the movie, like, nothing can be further from the truth. I mean, it wasn't the case at all. Well, and I love that he finally gets his quote at the end.
That to me, he was like, wait.
I'm not telling you to not do it. I'm just saying, let me have
one quote.
And then that last photo, you've got the press guy, you've got the military people, you've got the dead president.
But the fact that you have that picture slowly developing as the credits roll,
it's our future, man.
And that posing with the president, I'm like, that is 100% what would happen.
Well, and
it happens in other countries right now.
Oh, but you know that would happen.
It very much had the, like, prize buck photo feel to it. Like, you know, it was, and it wasn't a buck, it was a human being, and they were still that proud. And again, as we talked about earlier in the show, difference between human and animal there, right? Anyway.
Well, and I think it took, you know, sometimes it just takes that one horrifying moment when something in your life clicks. Your loved one is taken from you. What you thought was maybe a freedom is taken from you, and then it clicks because let's see, Joel, who he is the journalist. He's not a photographer. He's a journalist. throughout the whole movie, you don't think he's on a side at all. He's just like everyone else. He's following where the story goes. He doesn't have an opinion. And then he has a breakdown, man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he wants to see, by the end of the movie, he wants to see that president killed as much as, you know, these military people, I'm going to say loosely, on
Right.
this side. And, you know, I had a thought during the whole raid of the White House is that there are a lot of instances where you have Secret Service men and women who have to work for a president they would not vote for.
Right.
They have to die
Right.
for a human being because that's their job. Now, I know they chose that job,
But
Sure.
but they don't get to decide once you become that job, you don't get to decide who you die for.
No.
and I love in the movie too, especially notice this the second time, because one of the criticisms I saw, one of the other critics that we saw it with said it becomes a little bit of a like a Tom Clancy type video game at the end. And they were like, the fact that there wasn't a lot of security and there's not a lot of resistance, but Garland sets that up when they're talking to the embedded reporters, and they're like, Washington has fallen, basically.
Mhm.
The generals have already cut deals.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
he has left is a handful of Secret
Yeah.
Service. And
Yep.
so, but it said it, and that's the thing I like about Garland. He doesn't babysit you as an audience member. He
Mhm.
trusts you to
Mhm.
keep up. And so he'll drop these little pieces for you. Like they say in the film that the president is in his third term and that he's disbanded the FBI. And we don't know all of what else he's done, but that gives you just enough that you go, okay, I can see
And-
why.
These people aren't around to protect him.
Right.
And-
Right.
And by the way, for those wondering, the 2-term limit was a late addition to the Constitution as an amendment after Franklin Delano Roosevelt won his 4th term.
That's right.
And it could be overturned by a president who wanted to push it and had control of both the House and the Senate.
That's a good
So
point.
don't think that couldn't be a reality
Yeah.
for us
Yeah.
a few years down the
Yeah.
road.
Well, and also I do love, I mean, that's a bit of history that I had no idea. So that makes things a little bit scarier from
Mhm.
my perspective. But when somebody makes reference to this movie seem a little bit like a video game, bingo.
Right.
Because there are humans from the age 6 and up that play video games, them as army or whatever, like just killing people with their friends, talking crap to each other like it's any other day.
Right.
And it's nothing. And I'm not saying that video games cause death. However, having any type of media in front of you for a certain period of time will again desensitize you from seeing and doing certain things, no matter what that media is, like the art form that you're
Mhm.
watching or
Mhm.
seeing.
All right. Should we give it a grade?
Sure.
Do it. You want me to start?
Sure.
This is a solid A for me. I do not know. I don't know what else is coming, but I have a hard time imagining something else is going to hit me as hard as this movie did. And I noticed at points, all three of us were like leaning forward in our seats. Like you just kind of inherently lean. And Val, you've talked about this before, is when when you're really into a movie, when you're leaning into it. I don't know if any other studio would have the guts or the wherewithal to green light this film, and to not only green light this film, but to do a pretty heavy marketing push for it. And to get this to #1 at the box office. I mean, there's not a lot of competition, but the fact that you have a horror film in Abigail that wasn't able to beat it says that this has gotten good word of mouth, but it was good with the critics too. But any other studio is going to look at this and be like, this is way too hot button. There's no way I can market this. There's no way I can make money off of this. I can't sell any merchandise for this. I can't make t-shirts. I can't do stuffed animals. I can't do toys. I don't want anything to do with this. And A24 is like, this is something that needs to be made, so let's go do it, is fantastic to me. I really applaud them. I don't know of any other movie, and again, I haven't seen them, but this one just hit me hard, and it hit just as hard the second time around. This is, and we talked about this after the screening. This is not a movie that I necessarily want to see again, and I've seen it twice. Right. But at the same time, I am dying for this to come out where I can watch this at home and I can pause it and I can dissect it and I can watch the edits and I can really dive into how he puts these scenes together and how they all fit together and some of the things that he does on a technical level to make you feel the way that you do. This is a masterclass of filmmaking.
Yeah, I would definitely use this as a teaching tool.
Yeah, but like Jake said, this is kind of the feel bad movie of the year. This is not a movie that you want to go see again, but it hits just as hard the second time. So A for me.
You mentioned the not a lot of marketing opportunities. My wife and I went and saw a movie later that week at Megaplex, and they had an ice cream flavor that was like patriotic pistachio.
I noticed
and it was like Civil War patriotic pistachio. And my wife's like, so are one of the sides like green? Is that their color? I'm like, no, nobody talks about
they have like ribbons of strawberry there for blood.
I saw Abigail, my friend, pointed that out.
And I thought that is the most bizarre tie-in ever, and it just felt wrong. It just isn't a movie that you need tie-ins for.
Yeah.
I think this movie is an A as well. And I say that with a caveat. Like, normally when I give a movie an A, and we've kind of set the standard, it's a movie that I'll watch again and again. This is not. I will probably never watch this movie again.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't look at any part of it and say that the sound wasn't great, the cinematography wasn't great, the script wasn't great, the story, all of it was really, really well done and was A quality work. I just don't want to sit through it again.
Mm.
And I don't want to ever, in reality, sit through it.
Right.
And I think that's because the message of the movie resonated well enough with me, and it came across well enough with me that I just don't have a desire to watch it again. And I feel like it did its job in that case, for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it's an A. I mean, I can't find a flaw in it that I would say this is why it wouldn't be an A.
Yeah. As a human, I really believe that most people are inherently good,
mm-hmm.
right? And that being said, I feel like a lot of us, we see these things happening on the news or whatever, and we think that, okay, if I'm ever encountering this situation, I'm going to do better. Right. I'm going to be better. I'm not going to follow this. But what this movie shows you is that you don't know until it happens to you what kind of person you're going to turn into, and that no side is a good side, because we saw all the sides, and all the sides were
mm-hmm.
doing horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing it because they thought that it was the right thing to do from their perspective.
Right.
And so that hit so hard for me. And I do want to see it again with Dave, because I want the conversations that come from this film are what I
mm-hmm.
really enjoy, because I want to know what other people think about this. It's that human interaction and thoughts on the things. And I also will see probably something else that I didn't see before through someone else. But yeah, this movie is going to stick with me, for a long time. And again, just so beautiful to watch something so horrific.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's these quiet moments where they have conversations and they have thoughts and they have human quiet moments during this chaos that's going on around them that I feel like we all go through. We all have chaos in our lives, right? And then we all have moments that kind of slow down, that we can kind of take things in and really take perspective on things. So it's an A for me as well. Solid A across the board. Again, I think it's an important movie, maybe of our time. Mm-hmm. It might be one of the most important movies of our time.
I I do think, though, thinking back on it, that really for the character development piece, what it really could have benefited from was about 7 or 8 more flashbacks to really kind of drive home the point. When Zack Snyder makes his version of this movie,
The Snyder cut of Civil War.
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. I don't know why we had
Instead
to go there.
Instead of the still images from the cameras, we'll just have the slow-mo.
yeah,
That whole shootout in the White House hallway, I could totally,
yeah,
just I can see it.
And then flashback into one of the shooter's minds about how he felt about something when he was a child, and then jump right back in.
yeah.
No, for me, I wouldn't have cut anything out of this film. I usually say every movie that I see, I could at least cut 15 to 20 minutes out of. This one, maybe it'll be different when I see it again, but
No,
I can't think of a thing you'd cut in this. There's no extra scenes. It's just, but at the same time, it's cut so well that I don't feel like it's lacking.
Yeah.
But this is one that I really think that'll be studied in film school. Like,
I think so.
Yeah.
This is technical filmmaking at a high level.
If we don't see this pop up again around award season, especially for the technical aspects, I would be shocked.
Yeah, maybe technical. It will be ballsy. I have held that in all night. If Hollywood allows this film to be in any category other than technical and sound.
Yeah.
Because this film shows every side. I don't want to say as a villain, but as not nice.
Complicated.
Yeah. And so if I'm wrong, I will come back on here and say, way to go, Academy. Way to go, Golden Globes. Wait, maybe the SAG. Maybe SAG.
I could see maybe.
Yeah.
Might.
My fear too is that they'll be like, oh, well, it came out in April and we forgot about it. Like that'll be a convenient
They can make the excuses they want. If this movie isn't nominated for anything other than those 2 awards, unless for some reason 9 to 10 other movies come out between now and December that are 100% better than this movie, because there's 10 Best Pictures, right? 10. 10 Best Pictures nominations for at least the Academy Awards. Not all of them, but
how many?
10.
Yeah, way too many. But it means, like, I just don't see it. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope the world can prove
think it
me
will.
wrong.
I think it'll be Best Picture and Best Director. I don't know if they'll give it the win, but I think it'll get those 2.
I think maybe Kirsten, if they bring in Best Picture, Best Director, they might throw Kirsten in there.
I can see her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could maybe see screenplay and some technical stuff.
I think
it's going to be. I think this is going to be one that's going to to be hard to ignore, even that it's 8 months away. I still think this.
I've seen a lot of good movies get ignored during award season.
I was going to say, Tracy, you very underestimate the ability to ignore movies that the Academy has. I mean, they're good. They've been doing it for a long time.
They surprise us every once in a while.
I think this one's going to get in there. I do.
Okay. We'll wait and see. I don't think it will. I'm with Val. I think technical stuff, I think it will get nominated, but I don't see it. I don't think it's the type of movie that gets nominated for Best Picture. Now, Val did point out that there's a few, I can't remember the number of nominations for Best Picture, but there's 10 now. and different movies are getting nominated than what we've seen in the past because of that. So it could, but I would not be surprised if it didn't.
Yeah.
So anyway.
We will see. We shall see.
We shall see.
It's a long way off. There's a lot of movies to happen between now and then, and hopefully a lot of movies that make us to happen between now and then. So
yay!
There's
a lot of good stuff coming. Like the Fall Guy looks good. The Furiosa looks good.
None of those movies of which will be nominated either.
No, but they look fun.
Unless it's for technical and or.
I think Fall Guy is going to be the sleeper hit of the
Oh,
summer.
I'm looking forward to
agree.
Fall Guys so much.
That looks so much fun.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
see it in
I
2
think-
weeks, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it'll be a sleeper hit. And then, of course, Deadpool and Wolverine will do really well in the box office.
That trailer didn't do anything for me.
There's
Like-
3 trailers out now. None of them did anything for you.
The overuse of the F-bomb is just not clever to me. Like, that's the whole point of this new trailer. Look, we're in a Disney movie and we can swear. And I'm like, I'm not a Deadpool guy. Like, I like Ryan Reynolds enough, and I like him and Hugh Jackman and their banter, but so far, nothing in this has made me be like, I'll go see it because it's
The
Marvel
only-
and everything else. But
The biggest draw for me, and what I've loved about the trailers as I've watched them so far, is seeing Wolverine in his yellow.
I was just going to say the
Wolverine
yellow
suit.
spandex, Jake.
Yeah, like that's something I thought we would never, ever, ever see, and I
Mhm.
love every minute that I get to see him in that. Just
Yeah, I'm
because,
excited for it.
not in a weird way. I don't mean in a weird way, Tracy.
No, it's
Don't
in the
be weird.
nerdy way.
Yeah,
And also,
yeah,
you
this
go
is
back
the
to
Wolverine you grew
X-Men,
up with.
the
Yeah,
X-Men
yeah.
movies, when you have Cyclops turn around to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine when he's like, I just don't like this. He's like, what do you need? Yellow spandex? Like,
Yeah.
it was great.
Yeah. So I'm excited. Well, thanks for following us, supporting us. If you get a chance to follow our YouTube channel, we appreciate it, or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate that as well. And until next time, we won't see you at the movies.
Bye.
This has been an Age of Geek media production.